Assalamu alaikum and good morning. Today we are going to discuss a very important topic, that is the cardiac arrest and AHA guidelines for CPR. I know all people are familiar with the term cardiac arrest. As the name suggests, cardiac and arrest. Cardiac means heart, arrest means there is going to be a stoppage, but this stoppage is temporary, and the person who is having this problem can be revived after a certain procedure that is known as CPR, that is cardiopulmonary resuscitation. But how to do this CPR? There are certain guidelines, there are certain protocols which are provided by the American Heart Association. So today we will discuss in detail the cardiac arrest and also the protocols or the guidelines which are provided by American Heart Association for the cardiopulmonary resuscitation. It means how to revive this person who has undergone cardiac arrest or whose heart is temporarily stopped due to various reasons. Before proceeding to the actual topic, let's see what cardiac arrest actually is. So it is defined as uh, the cessation of cardiac mechanical activity as confirmed by the absence of signs of circulation. So basically, there are two types of the activities of the heart. One is the mechanical, other is the electrical. Mechanical, it means contraction of the heart. Then electrical, that is displayed on the electrocardiograph as ECG. So whenever there is cessation of the mechanical activity, it means heart stops to contract or to pump blood, and it is confirmed by the absence of signs of circulation. What are the signs of circulation? Signs of circulation, it means the patient is normothermic, the patient is red. In the absence of the circulation, what happens that the temperature of the person decreases, and also the peripheral circulation is going to be ceased, and that can be confirmed by the absence of the color. The color of the extremities or the skin becomes mottled, or it becomes mottled or whitish, or cyanosis can be seen. So what people are at risk of developing this cardiac arrest? Can it happen to anyone? Basically, there are certain people who are at greater risk for the cardiac arrest. That includes people who have had a prior sudden cardiac arrest. So there are more and more chances of developing the second episode of cardiac arrest. People with a family history of sudden cardiac arrest, they used to suffer at their most. People who had a heart attack is a very layman term. It can be myocardial infarction. So the people whose heart is already weak can develop cardiac arrest. People with a history of congestive heart failure, they are again more at risk. And the people who are having their ejection fraction less than 35%, they are also at risk. So it means the people who are having either a pathological cardiac condition, or who are having a family history, or people who are having comorbids like diabetic mellitus, hypertension, or any other cardiac disease, they are more and more at risk of developing this cardiac arrest. This is about the adult persons. If we talk about the pediatric patients, then the patients who are suffering from pulmonary pathology, they are more at risk. So this is a distinguishing factor between the adults and the pediatric population. In the adults, the pre-existing cardiac comorbidities, cardiac problems, they are the most prevalent cause, while in the pediatric population, the presence of some respiratory or pulmonary pathology is the most common cause of developing cardiac arrest. If we go through the history, then the history is very interesting. The first written account of a resuscitation is that of Elijah the prophet. The story is written in detail in the Bible, and it actually tells the story of a grief mother who brought her lifeless child to Elijah and begged for help. And as quoted in the verses of Bible that he placed himself over the child, he puts his mouth on his mouth, his eyes on his eyes, and his hands on his hands as he bent over him. And the body of the child became warm. He stepped down, walked once up and down the room, then mounted and bent over him. Thereupon the boy sneezed 7 times, and the boy opened his eyes. So basically, this very interesting story actually takes us back to the ancient times where there was a concept of cardiac arrest as well as of the cardiopulmonary resuscitation. He put his mouth on his mouth. It means he was trying to give some kind of the breathing, and then he bent over him. It may shows that he has done some kind of the chest compressions, and then the body of the child became warm. So it means that the cardiopulmonary resuscitation was done to some extent, and the boy revived after that from the cardiac arrest. But being very scientific, actually, the cardiac arrest is being dealt by the American Heart Association in very much detail, which not only describes the etiology of this condition, it also describes how to deal with that patient on immediate basis, and then what is the post resuscitation care that is provided to that patient. So basically, cardiopulmonary resuscitation is nothing. It is very easy to, and it is as easy as CAP. It is not ABC, it is CAB because it starts from compression in which the chest of the victim is going to be compressed if pushed hard and fast on the center of the chest. Then this describes the C component of CAP. The A component is relevant to the airway, in which the victim's head is tilted back and the chin is lifted to open the airway. And then finally the breathing, in which the mouth-to-mouth breathing rescue breaths are given, or if there is availability of the mask, then the person victim is going to be given breathe through that. So the CPR is as easy as CAB. CAB, compressions, airway, and breathing. The cardiac arrest can occur within the hospital or it could be outside the hospital. And in both problems, whenever it is in the hospital or out the hospital, the sequence of management is little bit changed because in the hospital, the person is already admitted because of some pathology. It could be cardiac pathology, it could be pulmonary pathology, or something else. And the person is under the surveillance and prevention of that disease. So IHCA is the intra-hospital cardiac arrest, in which there is already identification of that person through the surveillance and prevention of that comorbid that is associated in causing the cardiac arrest. And whenever the cardiac arrest takes place, there is recognition and activation of the emergency response system is very easy because in hospital it is very easy to provide care to that patient. Immediately high quality CPR is started with the chest compressions, and if there is rhythm that requires defibrillation, then rapid defibrillation is done. And finally, the person is continued with the advanced life support and post-arrest care. So in hospital cardiac arrest, this chain of management, you can see there are 5 pieces of a chain which are interconnected with each other. If the person is undergone cardiac arrest outside the hospital, then first of all, whoever is the attendant, whether the person is a passerby or a person at home, There is recognition and activation of the emergency response system is the first part of that chain. In the second part, immediate high quality cardiopulmonary resuscitation is started with the chest compressions. Again, if the person is having some rhythm that needs defibrillation, then the defibrillation is done very rapidly. Then the person is transported from outside to the hospital through the basic and advanced emergency medical services. And finally, in the hospital, whether in the cath lab or in the ICU, advanced life support and post arrest care is provided. So it means in hospital, cardiac arrest, and out hospital care cardiac arrest, outside hospital cardiac arrest. Basically, the primary providers, they will deliver the patient to core team that may take the patient to cath lab or finally ICU. While in the outside, out of the hospital cardiac arrest, lay rescuer, whether they are the passers-by or whether they are at the home, at the home, which are relatives, they will actually call the emergency medical services for help. Then the person is taken to the emergency department and finally reaches to cath lab, and after any intervention will be um, taken to ICU for further management. So it means there are certain things which are very common among the chain of survival in the persons who are having in the hospital cardiac arrest and the outside hospital cardiac arrest. Some steps, some parts of the chain, they are the same. And these chains, they are very essential. They are very important for the survival of that patient. If they are maintained accurately, the chances of the survival of this patient is very, very high. And any chain, if broken, then it can cause problems with the survival of the patient. Now, let's see what are the key points. Key points of this CPR is that the patient is laid supine on a very hard surface. Hard surface could be the floor or it could be the board that is provided at very so many emergency departments, especially for the CPR. This hard board is made up of wood and the person is placed in a supine position over there. So it means we cannot do CPR on the bed or on the stretcher, because if you will do CPR on the bed or in the on the stretcher, then it can cause problems. The effectiveness of the chest compression will be compromised. A very important key point of the American Heart Association guidelines is high provision of high quality cardiopulmonary resuscitation. And it has certain components, it has certain points, it has certain important, very important steps that must be taken and that increase the chance of the survival of the patients. Now, what is the first actually point? It is that then the chest compression should be done at least 2 inches or 5 centimeter depth. So push hard at least 2 inches or 5 centimeters. And we must push very fast at a rate of 100 to 120 per minute. So adequate depth and number of chest compression, they both are very important. Depth is at least 2 inches or 5 centimeters in the center of the chest, and the number of the chest compression must be between 100 to 120 per minute. You should allow complete chest recoil. Once the chest go inside, then it must come out equally. You must not push in a way that you push once and then you do not wait for the chest recoil and then you push again and again. No, there must be a complete chest recoil so that after doing one compression, the next compression must be equally effective. There must be minimized interruption between the compressions. Do not wait to do another compression. There must be no interruptions at all. If there is a matter of tiredness of one person who is doing the cardiopulmonary resuscitation, then the person can be replaced by the other one who can do these compressions more effectively. But there must be no gap or interruption between that. Avoid excessive ventilation. Actually, excessive breathing, if you are giving ventilation through the mask, and you are doing it excessively, then it will only cause gastric distension and nothing else. It does not help much. Rotate compressor every 2 minutes, because after 2 minutes, the person may get fatigued who is doing chest compression. So it is beneficial to rotate the compressor every 2 minutes if two people are available for the cardiopulmonary resuscitation. Then compression to ventilation ratio is 30 to 2. You do 30 compressions and you give only 2 ventilations. 30 compressions and 2 ventilation. This actually correlates with the point number 4, that avoids excessive ventilation. We do not need excessive ventilations or unnecessary ventilations. So complete recoil of the chest must be there. Do not overventilate, as we just discussed. Breathing devices like one-way valve face mask can be used, because there are so many chances of getting the person who is actually doing the ventilation, if doing it through mouth to mouth, then the infection rates can be take place. The person who has undergone cardiac arrest is suffering from some infection, then there are chances of suffering from that uh, infection. Like nowadays we are having COVID pandemic, so breathing devices must be there, and these breathing devices must have a one-way face mask. Deliver breath over 1 second. Whenever the ventilation is done, it must be done over 1 second, not less than that. And as a result of this breath, the chest must rise. Chest of the victim must rise, and you have to see that. You are in the final year, and you will go to skill lab when this pandemic is going to over, and you will come back for to the farms, and you will get a training of this cardiopulmonary resuscitation as skill lab. Then there are mannequins over which you can perform this cardiopulmonary resuscitation manually. As we just talked, that American Heart Association has actually provided certain guidelines, certain steps which must be followed without any delay in the person who has undergone cardiac arrest. There are two types of the algorithms. These are the steps which are provided by AHA. There are two types of the algorithms which are provided by the American Heart Association. One is the BLS algorithm, and is the ACLS algorithm or ALS algorithm. BLS is the basic life support algorithm, which the first is in which the first step is that verify the scene safety. Suppose a person is undergone in cardiac arrest in a place where there is certain environmental hazards, like fire is there or earthquake is going on, or there is chances that the person who will do CPR may got some injuries, like if the person is gone into cardiac arrest because of some accidents, trauma. First, the scene safety must be assured, not only for the victim but also the person who is providing the CPR. So scene safety, if the fire is there, then the person must be removed from that area. If the earthquake is there or the trauma scene is there, then the victim and the rescuer must ensure that the environment is safe for them. Then the person will see whether the victim is responsive or unresponsive. If the victim is unresponsive, that can be seen by tapping the shoulder of the person and asking, "Are you okay? Are you okay?" Then, if the victim is unresponsive, then the rescuer who is actually doing that CPR must shout for nearby help and activate the emergency response system if through the mobile or any other device that is available. And whenever the rescuer communicates, rescuer who is actually doing the CPR communicates with the emergency medical services, then must inform them the patient is undergone cardiac arrest and there is need of emergency equipment and AED. We will see in a while what is this AED. This is automated external defibrillator. So when the unresponsiveness of the victim is confirmed, help is called, then there must be information regarding the provision of the AED at the mobile phone given to the emergency department. Then the rescuer will see whether the victim is breathing or not. If the person is normally breathing and has a pulse, then only monitoring must be done until the emergency responders arrive. If the person is has a pulse normal, but the breathing pattern is not normal, then rescue breathings can be given through the this ambu bag or the mask. A breathe One breath must be given at every 5 to 6 seconds or about 10 to 12 breaths per minute. Emergency response system must be activated after 2 minutes of these rescue breathings. These rescue breathings must be continued and the pulse is checked every 2 minutes. If no pulse, then the CPR must be started. But if the pulse is there, then only must the rescuer must wait for the emergency response system to come for help. And if the opioid overdosage is suspected, then naloxone can be given. But if the person now come to the pink box above, if the person has no breathing or only gasping and there is no pulse at all, where you will see the pulse, you will look for the pulse at the central air pulses, you will see the pulse in the neck only for 10 seconds. And if there is no pulse and the person is not breathing, then you must start with the cardiopulmonary resuscitation. And the cycles are started 30 compressions in 2 breaths. Meanwhile, the emergency team arrives and they have brought the automated external defibrillator. Then it is attached with the person. And this instrument, it will check the rhythm, whether the rhythm is of the person is shockable or non-shockable. Shockable rhythms are two. One is the ventricular tachycardia, another is the ventricular fibrillation. While non-shockable rhythm, they are again two. They are either asystole or it is pulseless electrical activity. If the rhythm is ventricular tachycardia and ventricular fibrillation, it is shockable, then the one shock is given to the person. Electrical shock is given to the automated external defibrillator, and CPR is started again for 2 minutes. Then again AED will check the rhythm. If it is shockable, then it will again deliver the shock. Otherwise, the CPR will be continued until the advanced life support providers they arrive or victim revives from the cardiac arrest and starts to move. While the rhythm, if the rhythm is non-shockable, which I just told you, it is asystole or pulseless electrical activity, then CPR is immediately resumed for 2 minutes until the AED commands you to check the rhythm, and it must be continuous until the ALS providers they arrive and they take over the victim or the victim revives from the cardiac arrest and starts to move. So this is all about the basic life support algorithm. I just told you there are two rhythms which are shockable and two rhythms which are non-shockable. Shockable are ventricular fibrillation and ventricular tachycardia without pulse. And non-shockable are pulseless electrical activity and the asystole. If the in the last basic life support algorithm, we have seen that there are chances that The pulse is there, but the person is only gasping or no normal breathing is there. Then the unresponsiveness of the patient must be seen, and the emergency team must be informed to bring AED and naloxone. Breathing of the victim must be observed. If the person is having no breathing or only gasping, then but pulse, then only rescue breathings can be given. Or if the person is unresponsive with no breathing and only gasping, then CPR is started. If you are alone, then perform CPR for 2 minutes and leaving the phone to the emergency medical service number and get naloxone and AED. How this is going to be naloxone is going to be administered? It is given as intranasal or intramuscular. The dose of intranasal is 2 milligram, while intramuscular is 0.4 milligram, and it can be repeated after 4 minutes because of having short half-life. If the person responds, then uh, start or response or start to breathe regularly or produces some noises or moves purposefully, then you must check the responsiveness and continue with the breathing until advanced life support arrives. If the person stops responding, then start with the CPR and repeat the naloxone. But if the person does not respond, then CPR is continued and AED must be attached to the person as it arrives. Another very important thing, once you start with the basic life support, then the second step of the same algorithm is the advanced cardiac life support algorithm that is known as the ALS or ACLS algorithms, in which the advanced life support team has arrived and the team has brought certain equipments along with them. It also includes automated external defibrillator. So the person was unresponsive. You have seen the safety of the scene. You cleared that. Then you started with the chest compressions. And the first step of ALS algorithm is to give oxygen and to attach monitor or defibrillator. That defibrillator is going to assess the rhythm, whether it is shockable or it is non-shockable. Shockable rhythms are ventricular fibrillation and pulseless ventricular tachycardia. Then a shock is administered if the person is having shockable rhythms. And immediately after the shock, CPR is continued for 2 minutes. Meanwhile, the other person who are having included into this team, they will establish an intravenous or intraosseous access. Again, the rhythm is assessed after 2 minutes. If it is shockable, then a second shock is delivered. Then the CPR is going to be continued. Epinephrine is given every 3 to 5 minutes, and advanced airway like the endotracheal intubation can be done, that is attached with a monitor that is brought by the advanced life support team, that is known as the capnography. Again, after 2 minutes, the rhythm is assessed whether it is shockable or non-shockable. If it is shockable, then CPR after the third shock. This is going to be the third shock. So again, after the third shock, the CPR is resumed, and then you can consider the use of antiarrhythmic drugs like amiodarone or treat the reversible cause. We will see what these reversible causes are. So it means if the rhythm is shockable, you will give 3 shocks. You will continue with the cardiopulmonary resuscitation that includes compression and the ventilation at a ratio of 30 ratio 2. Meanwhile, you will establish intravenous and intraosseous access, and meanwhile you will give epinephrine every 3 to 5 minutes. You will put an advanced airway and attach capnography that will detect the carbon dioxide and tidal carbon dioxide into the exhaled air, and you will Finally, after the third shock, consider the antiarrhythmics, or you will identify certain reversible causes to manage them. But if the team has started CPR, given oxygen, monitor is attached, defibrillator is attached, but the rhythm is non-shockable. That includes asystole or pulseless electrical activity. Then only you will continue with the cardiopulmonary resuscitation for 2 minutes. Meanwhile, you will establish an IV or IU intraosseous access, and it is basically done in the pediatric population. IV is better than in the adults. Epinephrine is given every 3 to 5 minutes. At advanced airway like endotracheal intubation can be done, that is attached with the capnograph. Again, after 2 minutes, the rhythm is assessed. If it is non-shockable, the cardiopulmonary resuscitation will be continued for 2 minutes, and meanwhile, reversible causes can be identified and managed. In between, again, the rhythm is going to be assessed again and again. If it becomes converted now into the shockable, then it must be treated as the VF or pulseless VT, and 3 shocks will be given along with the epinephrine or the advanced airway and the antiarrhythmics or identification of those changes, reversible causes. But if again there is no sign of return of the spontaneous circulation, ROSC, that is known as ROSC, in which no spontaneous circulation returns, then again CPR is going to be repeated and again and again. It depends upon how long we will do this cardiopulmonary resuscitation. It depends on the protocols available at different institutions. In case of ACEs, pulse like electrical activity for half hour or more than half hour or 1 hour, CPR is continued. If the person is revived, then post cardiac arrest care is mandatory. It must be provided to each and every patient. Now, if on the um left hand side of the screen you can see that there is a chart that shows the CPR quality. CPR quality means you are supposed to push hard. This is very important. You may get this in your exam. What is the quality CPR? In the quality CPR, you will push hard, at least 2 inches or 5 centimeter in the center of the chest, and you will push fast. That is 100 to 120 times per minute, and allow complete chest recoil in between. There must be minimized interruption in the compressions. Excessive ventilation should be avoided, and compressor must be rotated every 2 minutes if fatigued. If no advanced airway is considered, then 30 to 2 compression ventilation ratio must be observed. Quantitative waveform capnography is very important. If the end-tidal carbon dioxide that is detected through the capnograph is less than 10 millimeter of mercury, then compressions must be of inadequate quality. The quality of the compression must be improved. And the intra-arterial pressure, if intra-arterial line is there and diastolic pressure is less than 20 millimeter of mercury, again the CPR quality must needed to be improved. We talked about again and again about the defibrillation. Defibrillation again, it could be biphasic, it could be monophasic, and depending upon that, the current, how much energy you are going to deliver through this defibrillation is going to be decided. Through the biphasic defibrillation, 120 to 200 joules can be given, while in the monophasic, 360 joules can be given. But it is about the defibrillators, where automated external devices AED are not available. But if AED is available, then it will give the shock in through a pre-adjusted energy levels. Drug we will use in during the CPR is the most important drug is the epinephrine that is given in a dose of 1 milligram every 3 to 5 minutes, and amiodarone that is given as a bolus in a dose of 300 milligram, and second is 150 milligram. Whenever we talk about an advanced airway, then we can explain it as an endotracheal intubation, or it could be supraglottic advanced airway devices. We will see in a lecture that what are these devices and how they are used. maybe in the next Tuesday's lecture. Then once the advanced airway is in place, then every breath is given every 6 one breath is given every 6 seconds, or you can give 10 breaths per minute along with the chest compressions. Whenever, how you will know that there is return of the spontaneous circulation or ROSC is achieved, and and the person has got the circulation back into his body. It is through the pulse and the blood pressure. So monitors are already attached, as we discussed several times. That the team that will come for the ALS will bring the monitors, and there may be if the capnograph is attached, then the entire carbon dioxide is increased greater than 40 millimeter mercury. Of if the intra arterial line is there, then there will be increase in the arterial pressure. Still, if the person is not reviving from the shockable or the non-shockable rhythm, yeah, the CPR is continuous, but the person is not responding at all, then you must look for the reversible causes in case of the shockable rhythm as well as non-shockable rhythm. And these reversible causes are very easy to remember. These are 5H and 5Ts. For H is hypovolemia, hypoxia, hydrogen ion, that is acidosis, hypo or hyperkalemia, and hypothermia. These are very much treatable causes. Hypovolemia can be corrected by the administration of the fluids. Hypoxia can be corrected when you give oxygen. Acidosis can be corrected easily. Hypo or hyperkalemia management, you can give calcium gluconate. And hypothermia by using the warming devices can be achieved. There are T5T also, which include tension pneumothorax, and that can be managed by just putting a needle into the second intercostal space in the mid-clavicular line. Cardiac tamponade is again an emergency that can be relieved immediately. Toxins, if identified, then they can be managed. If there is thrombosis, either pulmonary or coronary, then the people in the cath lab can help. So these are basically, this is the summary of the cardiopulmonary resuscitation that is provided by the American Heart Association in the ALS algorithm. What you will monitor while doing this cardiopulmonary resuscitation, you will check for the pulse in the neck. So you will look for the central pulsations, not peripheral pulsation, because there is no peripheral circulation because of the cessation of the mechanical activity of the heart. But you will check the pulse in the neck not more than 10 seconds. And you must not do that during the CPR. Pulse check again and again will only cause wastage of time and nothing else. End-tidal carbon dioxide is very important. You must keep it above 10 millimeter of mercury, and that shows the quality of CPR. Whenever there is return of spontaneous circulation is achieved, ROSC is achieved, then it ranges between 35 to 40 millimeter of mercury. But it is only possible in the patient who are having advanced airway, airway, that is endotracheal intubation done in their trachea. And if there is, luckily, intra-arterial line was there in the in hospital cardiac arrest patients, then you must keep this arterial diastolic pressure greater than 20 millimeter of mercury. Rescue breaths can be given if you are not having the mask, one-way face mask available. Then you will pinch the nose, and then you will yourself take a normal breathe of with a tighter volume of 500 to 600 mLs, and then seal your lips over the mouth, and then you will blow until the chest of the victim rises. It takes about 1 second. It must not be more than 1 second, and the chest must be allowed to fall, and then you will give the second breath. So there will be 30 compressions and only 2 breaths, not more than that. In the other recommendations are that the chest compression is only must be 100 to 120 per minute, not more than that, and the compression depth is at least 2 inches or 5 centimeter for an average adult, and avoid compression depths greater than 2.4 inches or 6 centimeter. Otherwise, it can cause damage to the sternum or it may result in the fracture of the ribs that will produce damage to the lungs as well as heart. Whenever the opioid associated life-threatening emergencies are considered, then naloxone is the antidote. It is given in a dose of 0.4 milligram intramuscular or 2 milligram intranasal routes. Whether you start with a shock first or you will start with the chest compression. So for witnessed cardiac arrest, witness that is seen obviously, AED is available. If the AED is available, then defibrillation must be used as early as possible rather than the start of the compression. But if the cardiac arrest was not witnessed, then you must start with the chest compressions and then activate the emergency medical services so that they can bring this AED with them. Whenever you are doing this chest compressions, then the chest recoil is very important. You must not put your weight on the chest. You must avoid leaning on the chest between the compression to allow full chest wall recoil. That is mandatory. So it will help the heart to fill with the blood and to empty in between. And that will actually enhance the circulation and the mechanical activity of the heart. Minimizing interruption in the chest compression is very important because it will compromise with the numbers of the that is 100 to 120 per minute if you will go do interruptions in between. When there is a ventilation is going on through an advanced airway like endotracheal intubation, then only one breath is provided every 6 seconds. So then there is going to be no 30 to 2 ratio compression and ventilation relationship. So when there is no advanced airways in place, the ratio of the chest compression and ventilation is 30 and 2. But if the advanced airway is in place, then the chest compression will be continued throughout the 2 minutes and the ventilation is given every 6 seconds. One breath every 6 seconds is provided and that actually constitutes 10 breaths per minute. Vasopressin that is used for resuscitation is only epinephrine. Vasopressin previously said that it has advantage uh, uh, in combination with the epinephrine. It is not uh, recommended nowadays. Other drugs that are beta blockers or lidocaine, they can only be used in the post cardiac arrest drug therapy, not during the arrest. So, or during the arrest, according to the advanced life support guidelines, you are provided with only two drugs. One is the epinephrine that is given in a dose of 1 milligram every 3 to 5 minutes. And the second is the amidron that is given as a bolus of 300 milligram followed by the second dose as 150 milligram. These are the reversible causes of cardiac arrest, these 5H and 5Ts we just discussed about them. So these are all the treatable causes of cardiac arrest. That's why they're known as the reversible causes of cardiac arrest. They can be reversed and they can be managed easily. The only issue is their recognition is very important. Once you recognize what are the causes, then you can manage them very easily. Here you can see a chart that is showing if you are doing the cardiopulmonary resuscitation in adults and in children and infants. So first of all, the scene safety is very important. Second is recognition of the cardiac arrest, in which you will check for the responsiveness of the patient. If there is no breathing and no pulse is felt in the neck within 10 seconds, then you will start activation of the emergency response system. If you are alone with no mobile phone, then leave the victim and activate that emergency response system to and bring an AED before bringing the CPR. If you are having another person with you, then you can send someone else to activate that emergency response system. And you must start with the chest compression immediately. But if in the case of children and infants, if we have witnessed the collapse, then you must left that child and activate the emergency medical system and ask them to bring the AED. But if it is unwitnessed collapse, then CPR, chest compression, and ventilation should be given for 2 minutes. Then leave the victim and activate the emergency medical system and ask them to bring the AED. And then return to the child or infant and start with the CPR again. Again, if we talk about compression ventilation ratio without advanced airway, we just talked that if one or two required, then the ratio is going to be 30 ratio 2, 30 compressions and 2 breaths. In case of children and infant, if one require is there, then the ratio will be 30 ratio 2. But if more requires are there, then the ratio is going to be reduced to 15 ratio 2. So after every 15 compression, 2 breaths are provided. But if the advanced airway like endotracheal tube is there, then the compression is done continuously at the rate of 100 to 120 per minute, and one breath is given every 6 seconds, and that constitutes 10 breaths per minute. The compression rate is same in the adults, children, and infants, that is 100 to 120 per minute. Compression depth is at least 2 inches or 5 centimeters. But in the case of pediatric population, it is different. It is at least one third of the anterior posterior diameter of the chest, about 2 inches or 5 centimeters. And in case of infants, it is about again one third of the anterior posterior diameter of the chest and to about 4 centimeters. And where the hands are going to be placed for the chest compression, two hands on the lower half of the breastbone or the sternum, while in case of pediatric population, two hands or one hand on the lower half of the breastbone or the sternum is placed. While in case of infants, which are very small child, that it can be given through the two fingers, which are placed in the center of the chest. Compression are given just below the nipple line. While if the reservoirs are more, then the two thumb that are encircling hands in the center of the chest can be given just below the nipple line. In all cases, you must allow full chest recoil after each compression and do not lean on the chest after each compression. Do not put your own weight on the chest of the victim. And there must be minimized interruption in between. And it must not be interrupted less more than 10 seconds. Otherwise, you have to start from the very beginning and the heart will not start to pump the pump to its full strength, and all the hard work you have done so far, it is going to be wasted. There are certain ancillary devices that are used for the cardiopulmonary resuscitation and the alternative techniques which have not in much use in the Pakistan setup, but they are used in the United States and other developed countries, like the impedance threshold devices, mechanical chest compression devices, and extracorporeal techniques and invasive perfusion devices. You can see over here in which the pumps are used. You can see these are various pumps are used, and these are actually used to um, free the persons who are persons their hands and the the rescuers will be free, and these machines, these devices, they will actually do the chest compressions, and they will provide the required depth with the required depth and the rate of the CPR. So it means these machines, though they are not in very much use, they are not that successful. Human cardiopulmonary resuscitation is more effective and it is more sufficient than these devices. You must only remember these, and you must also remember that life is a very precious thing. You never know when you are going to lose it. Live life when you can, because you never know which second is going to be your last one. you will when come back to Pons inshallah after the end of this pandemic, then you will learn how to do cardiopulmonary research. You can add skill lab practically, and when you will apply all these steps, then it will help you a lot, because the cardiac arrest can be take place anywhere with anyone, at your home place, while you are roaming in for your shopping in market, and in hospital when you are dealing with the patients. So it is very important to learn this. Ada Salim, Salim bhai, Ada Salim. क्वेश्चन हमारा पूछो, तो वो पूछे, अनम्यूट करेंगे, क्या करेंगे? हाँ बेटा, आप लोगों ने कोई क्वेश्चन पूछना है तो प्लीज आज के लेक्चर के बारे में पूछ सकते हैं आप लोग। हेलो बेटा, आपको अगर कोई क्वेश्चन पूछना है तो आज के लेक्चर के लिए पूछ सकते हैं आप लोग।
नो क्वेश्चन मैम।
नहीं, कुछ तो पूछो, क्योंकि ये बार बार बेटा नहीं होगा, और इसमें से ये आज का लेक्चर बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, और इसमें से कोई ना कोई चीज आपके एग्जाम में आएगी, चाहे वो आपका ऑस्पी हो, चाहे एमसीक्यू हो, कुछ ना कुछ आएगा, कोई शॉर्ट क्वेश्चन हो। इसीलिए मैं कह रही हूँ, अगर कोई क्वेश्चन है तो प्लीज आस्क। ये बाकी जितनी भी आपको पावर पॉइंट है और इसके सारे के सारे हैंडआउट्स जब आप लोग आओगे तो आपको मिल जाएंगे। और वैसे भी मैं पावर पॉइंट यहाँ पे आईटी वालों को दे दूंगी, तो ये आप लोगों को साथ शेयर कर देंगे।
यस मैम, आज शेयर कर दीजिएगा।
ठीक है बेटा, ओके, कोई क्वेश्चन नहीं
ओके
है?
मैम।
ओके बेटा, थैंक यू।
थैंक यू मैम।